everybody. My name is Max. I'm the host of Fitpath podcast, and I'm here today with Hayley Prince. Welcome, Hayley. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for accepting the invite and coming to our show. So, can we start with who is Hayley Prince?
Yes. So, long story short, I was a gymnast from the age of 8 to 18. So, that consumed a lot of my life. Very strict training environment. You know, elite gymnastics requires a lot out of you at a young age. And it's definitely not what I would call a normal childhood. So, it definitely shaped me in a way. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But right now, I retired gymnastics about 3 years ago and I've been working in a healthcare company. So, yeah, I'm really loving that at the moment, and just continuing
fantastic.
to expand on my things and what I want to do.
That's fantastic. So what I want to do is today, what we're planning to do is we want to learn about how is the life for elite gymnast in this country who has been in gymnastics for 11 years, right? And we're going to dig a little bit deeper on that. So let me start with this, Hayley. What initially drew you to the gymnastics in the first place? Tell me the story, how it all began first.
This is a funny story. I don't know if you call it funny, but I just say that. My mum's friend owned a gymnastics centre.
Wow. Okay.
In the Central Coast. So
Okay.
I'm originally from the Central Coast, which is like Greater Sydney. And I was always I was into dancing a lot. I was doing dancing and swimming.
Right. And what age are we talking about?
I started dancing when I was 2, and I did that till about age 8, and I was doing swimming classes as well.
Right.
All that sort of sports, and I was really flexible. And my mum's friend noticed me and was like, "Oh, she'd be really good at gymnastics. She's got the mobility. Come in for just to try it."
Wow.
And I went over there, and the first day, the curiosity just struck me. Watching the elite gymnasts train, I was like, what is this? This is a whole new world that I've never seen before. And my first trial day, I remember I was training with them. I had no strength whatsoever. I was so weak. Everyone could do the chin-up pullovers and all this stuff, and all I could do was the splits.
Right. What age did you start going to the gymnastic gym?
So I was 7, 8.
Oh, 7, 8.
Yeah, which is uncommon because most gymnasts start at age 5. Mm-hmm. So I was a bit late.
But it's still at that age you're also pretty flexible, and you're saying that you also did dance prior to that age. So I think
I feel the dance really helped me in gymnastics because confidence wise, I already had a bit of that flexibility. I had a bit of the things you need for gymnastics. And so it started there at Gosford Gymnastics, and I pretty much jumped into the elite program pretty quickly. They noticed me, they're she's really flexible. I only stayed in the national kind of basic program for a bit, and then they were like, "Oh, we really want her." So I ended up training with the elite gymnasts, and that was a huge shift and challenge because I was late. A lot of these girls already had skills, they had strength, and I had to catch up a lot.
Right.
So pretty much from age 8 to 18, I was always working really hard and strength wise, and I just wanted to catch up, but also get better than the people around me. That's the whole goal, your environment. So it started there, and long story short, I've actually changed gyms a number of times. I've trained on the coast, and then I trained in Sydney. I've had numerous coaches, Russian, American, Chinese, and I've learned something from every one of them, which is really cool. Training styles and attitudes, and that's the
awesome.
basics of it.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, I want to just step back a little bit, right? You said you started the gymnastic at the age of 8, and you need to catch up with the rest of the probably other people in the gym. So, and I'm assuming at that age you're also going through the school, and there's a lot of education and there's a lot of workload as well. How did you manage that, or how did your parents manage that?
Yeah, so this would have been primary school, so long ago for me. But I think as soon as the day I started gymnastics, that first trial, I was instantly in love with it. There's something that just drew me to it. And it became my life. Like I can't even remember really the days before that day because it just changed me so much, and I just became the gymnast. Like I'd go to school thinking, yeah, I'm the gymnast, and like I'd even try doing like, I don't know, flips in the playground or teaching other kids like how to do some stuff. Like I don't know, probably got almost in trouble, but I was just like, so like, this is cool, like let me show you and I'll help you and you should try. I don't know, like what am I thinking? I'm young trying to teach kids how to do gymnastics in the school grounds, like, but that was kind of fun. It like gave me something like that I was good at to do. And
it's kind of building your confidence as you
yeah. And I feel like at that point, I'll go into the next bit. So basically, I was training at Gosford for a little bit, and then my coaches all of a sudden, like, there's a time frame that you kind of get attached to your coaches, and I was not there for that long, and then they're like, oh, we're moving to Sydney. So I had a Russian coach and an Australian, and they're like, oh, we're moving to Sydney. So half of the girls, like we had so many girls in that program, most of the girls didn't go to Sydney because they couldn't do the traveling. They just, and probably the parents and something like that. But I convinced my parents so hard. I was like, I think I cried about it. I was like, I just really want to go to Sydney and keep doing gymnastics, like, and I need to go with these coaches because they're going to help me get to where I want to go. Like the Russian coach, I was really connected to him. Yeah, I did everything in my power to like convince them to let me go to and train in Sydney, which means I would be living away from my family, which means I would be living in a share house with a bunch of other gymnasts, like a completely different life while we were still in primary school. Like I was still in primary school.
It's a big decision, I suppose, like for both yourself and your parents, right? But I mean, that makes the difference between one person who goes to that level and extent of being elite athlete.
So I started training in Westfield Sports High School, which is a sporting school.
How often did you go to the gym when you started?
When I first started?
Yeah.
Look, I can't really remember, but I think it was definitely like 5 to 6. It was 6 days a week, like 30 plus hours. I was training morning sessions, afternoon sessions, fitting school in the middle, and our holiday training was every day. I don't even remember getting a school holidays that was not training.
Wow.
Like every school holidays was like 6 hours per day.
Wow.
From Monday to Saturday. My day off was Sunday.
Absolutely. And that reminds me like how dedication contributes to the success of one athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really a big decision to move to Sydney, or like not necessarily move, but definitely make that step like away from my life. And yeah, I feel like it was scary, but it was like in my head, it was just like what I needed to do to like see where this thing would go.
Right.
So yeah, living in a share house with a bunch of gymnasts from the Central Coast, only a few of us decided to go. So we're like, oh, we'll have one parent there each night of the week to look after you guys and make dinner. And like, it was kind of like our chaperone. Then we all had a room. I shared a room with my sister who was only like 7. Wow. So she was in the sport as well. And I was like her mum.
In gymnastics as well? Okay.
I had to be like her mum, which was like, well, I mean, I didn't have to be, but like part of me naturally just like mummed her.
Yeah. And also like the other aspect of it is like at that age, so you had I'm assuming you had a bunch of friends, right? But you kind of like diverted to a different path because you're now following your sport, gymnastic. So you're just not doing whatever the other girls at your age would do, right? How did you deal with that?
Well, my only friends were the gym friends. Like we just formed our community, and it's kind of crazy because there's so much jealousy and competition involved in gymnastics that you feel a bit alone. Like everybody's so competitive and it's hard to make friends. So I was always kind of like on my own, in my own thing, doing my own thing. But yeah, like I never really had a social life. And we'll go into that a bit later. But yeah, I never really had a social life my whole career. And I was like, I had a few friends, probably 1, 2, but they were gymnasts. And that made it so weird when we went to high school. It was just like, we're the gym girls and we'd always sit together at lunch.
Yeah,
and like we had it was just a different world outside of the gym.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you another question. So it's just kind of like I'm putting myself looking at a girl at age of 8 that is kind of like dedicating a lot of effort and going to the full length of moving from the hometown to a different, like the Sydney, and to do this. So what is inspiring this girl? What was your biggest inspiration to drive all those motivation?
The first step of like moving, that first decision, I think just like the curiosity of what could be, because I was quite young, like when I joined this elite squad, there were a lot of older gymnasts that were doing much bigger skills than me, and that kind of like inspired me to want to be like them. So if I didn't go ahead and like go with this, like these coaches in Sydney, I felt like my life was all this work was kind of like wasted. Like I had more potential, kind of thing.
And did you have the full support of parents as well?
Yeah, on the most part, but it was a very hard decision. Like I don't think they definitely didn't want to do it. Obviously, like it's hard to say because it's such a hard thing for them as well to completely change their life around.
Yep.
But I feel like I'm lucky because they always did. Like I just had that willpower and I wanted to do it, and they were able to just support me and do it anyway, because I was so strong in my mind. Like
that's amazing.
I'm not doing it.
That's amazing, and that's what the sport does, right? So it builds like the confidence that you feel that you can conquer the world. So and going back to your point in terms of not having the social life, I again look into training 30 hours per week is incredibly intense. So, and I'm assuming like you kind of like the balancing such a demand, like the scheduling between like your personal life, between school, between gym, at that, especially at that young age, which is incredible. Let me ask you another question. What would you, if you go back, let's say many years ago to, let's say, age 8, would that Hayley Princess start the same path or a different one?
Are you saying with the knowledge I have now, or?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, that's really hard. I think everything happens for a reason, so I don't really know, but I think it was meant to be. Obviously, this path has taught me something. So if I didn't, I probably I wouldn't have had this whole gymnastics career after that, and I wouldn't have got to this point. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Now let's look into those ones. Let's kind of like share the skill sets and the capabilities that you learn throughout discipline, throughout the dedication of doing your trainings and going to the competition. What did you learn?
There's a lot of things you learn in gymnastics. It's such a individual sport. It's such a you versus you sport. Like you're in it alone pretty much. Like you can have the support of your teammates and everything, but at the end of the day, you fall on your face, you have to get back up. Like you're the only one that's going to pick you up. So you learn resolve, you learn resilience. Like that's literally, that shapes you. Like that's the main thing I got out of it. And yeah, I think about it a lot, like the way gymnastics is so hard, and I look back and I'm like, how the heck did I even do that? But I think at the time when you're in that sport, you don't really know anything different. Like gymnastics is your whole life, and you're like, I just gotta get by. I just gotta do what I gotta do. There's so many other gymnasts around you training and doing the same thing. So you think to yourself, like, what even is normal? And you're just in it. So that kind of pushes you to keep going, like pain or no pain.
And that's amazing. Like what you're saying, like you learn the resiliency, which is like the much needed skill set in today's life, right? Does that skill set help you outside of the gymnastic in the real life?
100%. I think as well, going back a bit, when I left the sport, I didn't really know who I was or what to do with myself. I was actually quite injured after I finished my competition in Queensland. It was lockdown, but in lockdown I really found out who I was because I spent a lot of time alone. And definitely I've had a lot of bumps, ups and downs along the way, but it's definitely like when you hit rock bottom and you fall, like it's knowing that you can get up because you've done it before and you've become the type of strong person that can handle that. And I'm not saying it's not always good, but it's good to know that like you always have your back, and that you face so many harder things before that this is nothing, you know, this will pass. So yeah, I think
that's amazing. That's amazing. So what do you think the rest of the world could learn from, let's say, perseverance or resilience of what the sport, or in this case, gymnastic, can develop?
I think a resolve mindset, like it's not the end of the world. And just that, like, I don't know, you just always have to get back up and try again. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of failure and you shouldn't be afraid to fall. I know in gymnastics I was always really scared, and I had a lot of mental blocks, like going back to when I was about 12, 13. I was doing like bars training, and on this one skill I kept falling on the bar. My Russian, this is quite harsh, but my Russian coach was like, get up and do it again. Get up and do it again. I was shit scared. I was petrified. I was like, I'm going to fall on my head again, and I'm going to fall on my head again. I'm not saying this is okay, but that was it. That he was teaching us to be tough, you know, and I remember wanting to quit. I didn't want to go back in the gym. I was crying all night to my mum, like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. He's telling me to do it. I don't know how to do it, and I'm going to hurt myself. I'm scared. It took me so much, like, inner strength to be able to get into the gym the next day and, like, face that fear of that mental block and be like, you know, I ended up telling my coach, I was like, can we go back to the basics? Like, can you spot me on the bar and we try a different method? Can we try a different turn? And that ended up working. I ended up realizing how to do it properly by just going back and facing it and trying something different. And little things like that, where I was like faced with a decision, like I could either like sink or swim or quit and say I'm not doing it again. Those little things like make a big difference in your life.
Absolutely.
Like when you're faced with a decision, like you're shit scared and you just do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's honestly terrifying. That's why I think gymnastics you have to be so strong-minded. Like you have to be so strong-minded because you're literally going to land on your head. Like this sport is so dangerous. There's so many gymnasts that have been paralyzed, can't walk. Like you don't want to think about that when you're doing the skill, but it crosses your mind. And you're always in a bit of a fear-based kind of area in your life. You're always a bit scared. It's not the best, but... So
basically, you're constantly fighting with your mind. So what is your unconscious mind is telling you? Don't do it. Don't do it. So that and that's the biggest one. So I think I also kind of started doing a little bit of gymnastic just to get a little bit of flexibility because I built my being very stiff. So and also I realized the same thing as what exactly you're telling. So it's not about your strength and your muscles, how much power you got. It's a mindset that the moment that you want to do or jump or you want to do that act is just, there's something in mind that says block it, stop it. So being able to push over that fear is what makes someone...
You have to be so like mentally prepared. I think like even going to competition or doing big skills in my mind, like I think the last competition I'm going to put on that because that's my freshest memory. You just have to think about the cues the whole time, like push, run, this, jump, strong. Because if you don't like constantly think of that, it's like the fear comes in. So like the only way we were able to like calm the nerves is just think about the technique. Like, what do I have to do to execute this skill perfectly? Or not like fall or something. And so that's like training your mind, like, okay, this, don't do this, like don't think about that, just strong, this, push, like that's the whole point of it.
How many years did you compete?
Pretty much from like age 8, but it was like small in-house competitions, and then it started being more state competitions and then national competitions. I qualified for a few of those.
Right. So you basically you're telling me like even though you've been competing for many years, even in your last competition, you had to go through all those kind of like the maneuver of the mind, right?
Everybody does, 100%. When you're doing really high skills that are dangerous, you see gymnasts like talk about it all the time. Like their heads like talking gymnastics language, like while they're competing. Like, have you seen those videos where they're like jump, lift, and then they talk about what their head's saying?
Yeah.
So it goes into anyone, and you need to have that visualization that you're doing. That's what our coaches really enforce, like visualizing the skill in your mind. Like right before you do your competition routine, you present to the judges, you're thinking about how you're successfully doing the routine right before you go up. And that's really what helped me do it, like catch the bar, like, and it helps, and it really helps.
Right. I mean, like let me just kind of recap and sum up like what you, based on what I heard, what you will learn out of the consistency of doing gymnastics. So you're telling me you would learn how to push the barriers of the mind, right? You're just trying to push it further. You're also telling me it gives you the life lesson of being resilient, right? So those days that you don't want to go, but you kind of like the pushing the hurdle and saying,
better
like,
every day.
I got to do it, right? And also, like, you also mentioned something when you were talking that there are times that, let's say, it's so big, the fear is there and it's so big, right? But instead of just giving up, which is like the easiest way, you went to your coach and said, hey, can you break it down for me from the beginning? That's, to me, is one of the biggest problem-solving techniques that we do, right? Regardless of what we do every day in life, like we also might run into the big problems. But what you learn is breaking those to the small pieces and then tackle one by one, right?
I think it's communication and understanding. I think, when you're faced with that challenge in life, you have to break it down to basics and understand what the issue is rather than just going at it mindlessly. Yeah.
And let me ask you this question, because this is also pretty interesting. There might be like among the listeners, like there might be, I mean, the vast variety of people. There might be some people who are just starting. There might be people who are in mid-20s. They're thinking about it. Or there might be some parents, right? Let me ask you this question, which is, I'm basically targeting the parents based on your lived experience. Do you think any other way other than gymnastic in your case would have teach you better than what you've learned in terms of the resilience, in terms of the problem solving? So for instance, what I mean is like if your parents, your dad and mom, and come and sit down with you and say, Hayley, if you run into the problem, do this, would that be as efficient as you kind of like the going through this by your own? What's your thought on this?
I think that any elite sport or sport in general teaches you that, because you definitely have to go through it and experience it. You know, there's definitely a difference between people who grow up sitting on home on the couch playing video games and people who are actively in sports or doing something active with their life where they fall and they get back up and they learn those resilient muscles. So I definitely think, it's more than just talking about it. You have to face it and you have to experience it, because at the end of the day, it is your body. You're putting your body through stress. No one can just tell you about that and talk about it. You have to feel it. And when you feel it so deeply that like you're going through pain all the time, it's like,
which happens.
I've lived it, you know, and now I know what not to do or what I'd rather do, you know.
And let me ask you this question as well. Within your family, between your siblings, has anyone else was doing sport at that extent, or you were the only one?
Yeah, my sister. My sister was actually really amazing.
Wow, okay.
She was really good. She had a few mental blocks at the end of her career, but she had a bit of a different, like, style. I don't know. She was just go for it, and like she executed skills so well.
She was also doing gymnastics?
Doing elite.
Wow, okay.
She was doing elite gymnastics.
Still?
No, she stopped about 2 years before me. But we trained at the Sydney Westwood Sports High School together for 4 years. We trained in Sydney West Sports in Rudy Hill for 4 years with Chinese coaches. Like we've had a big career, even in Gosford. Like we've had a whole run. And she would just, I don't know, like she had this different power. I think she had a bit more like power than me, where she could just flip and do the double somersault and land it. I'm like, wow, like she's got so much potential. But she just had a bit of that mental blocks at the end of her career that she couldn't get past. And it just stopped. It got scared her a lot. And where it scared her to the point where she just didn't want to do it anymore. Because it was, it's obviously really scary.
Right. Understand. So, and also I want to talk about going back to the competitions, right? Do you have any memory that you would like to share with us? Could be a funny memory, could be a interesting one, up to you.
I do.
Whatever comes to your mind.
I do. This would have been, actually it was my 16th birthday.
Wow, okay.
It was my 16th birthday on day 2. But this competition, it's a big memory for me. Like, it's one of my most memorable competitions because leading up to it, I was pretty nervous. I was pretty scared. I was doing some very big skills that were kind of fresh into my routine, and I was just hoping that I hit them, you know. We're talking like double somersaults, 2.5 twists, like releases and catching the bar, like a lot of things. And at that time, I was with my Chinese coaches. So I remember the night before the competition, my Chinese coach, Jen, like sat us all down in the hotel because she was staying with us. And she was saying some sensei stuff, I don't know, like some sort of motivational, inspiring words that really got us in like the zone for the competition the next day. Because she had also trained an Olympic champion on the balance beam. So she had a lot of like experience. And I really looked up to her and I really trusted her with like my everything. Like she really gave me that confidence. And you don't really get that a lot from coaches. Like some you do, some you connect to. And yeah, like the whole day, I think I was alone in that comp. Oh, it was only a few girls. Anyway, this is my 16th birthday. It was 2 days of competition, so you have to hit both days. It's stressful. And yeah, I remember she was just like helping me before the competition, like calm my nerves and like giving me advice, like technique, focus on the push, like you got it, like you can do it. And I was so excited because like it's 4 routines, 4 apparatuses, and you have to hit one and then hit the next, and like momentum. And I remember hitting like my bar routine, which was the most scary for me. Like I had 2 releases in it. I hadn't really been catching them in training, and I hit it and I was just like, oh, the relief when you stick the dismount and you just have the relief. And then I hit my beam routine, and then I did my floor routine and the beam, and I just felt so good after that competition. And I came like top 10 in Australia.
Wow.
So after the 2 days, I came like top 10 of the elite gymnasts. So we're all training for the Olympics pretty much. So that was my best memory because I feel like the courage she gave to me really transformed.
Do you remember any of the words that she kind of like shared with you?
I think I really don't, but it was something to do with mental strength and like, I don't know, just like being resilient and strong. And it was really cool.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. That's very interesting. So, I mean, to me, is like what you're saying is like she was real coach, not only training, not only giving you the skill, but also trying to push the limit of the mind.
Yeah, well, she knows.
So if you're listening, thank you very much. I think you're the one. So, now. Going back a little bit on gymnastics. So, I mean, like there are some people who are listening to this podcast and they're already gymnasts. So, what was the toughest skill that you mastered?
I would say I was really into the bars, uneven bars, where you swing. And then, I really loved doing this skill, but I had a few mental blocks on it, believe it or not. It was so it's called a shap into a pack, which is a kind of like a backwards release from the low bar,
Mm-hmm.
and then you swing, and then you go and flip to the low bar again. So you
Mm-hmm.
get like a backflip to the low bar.
I mean, whatever she talks about, I have no idea. It's a jargon to me.
I have to show you a
She
video.
is amazing. I put up the video, and I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
if you guys get a chance to look at it,
I'll give you the video.
It would be jaw-dropping. So, and
Yeah, so that was a hard skill.
right now we're talking about a hard skill. Now I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Hit me.
If you want to define your gymnastic journey in one word, what that would be?
Resolve.
Resolve. Why is that?
Because you always have to resolve things. You always have to get up. You have to continue.
Like, you mean like you need to find a
Like,
way?
yeah, you need a resilience, resolve, you know, similar word, but it's just that. Like, I don't know, it's just it's a journey, and you have to pick yourself up every time.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. So I want to circle back a little bit as well. So why Haley quit gymnastics?
This is deep. I mean,
feel free to how deep you want to
No.
go. If you want to skip, I'm happy to.
It's deep, but it's not. Like, the reason I quit, I've been thinking about this like for a long time. Like when I quit, like why I wanted to quit, I don't know. Just something in me felt like I needed to quit. But okay, so when I was training, I had a national competition in Queensland. So this was my last competition. Leading up to that competition, I had sprained rolled my ankle, and I taped it every day, and I was still training on it, but I was kind of backing off on the tumbling side because I had to get to this national competition that I had qualified for, and I really wanted to go. You know, looking back, I probably should have rested, but me was like, no, I'm doing it. And it kind of got worse. Like, I kind of sprained my ankle again and became like grade 2. I rolled it randomly, and then it became grade 3, and it was just like really sore, but I could still do things. But I just rested like heavy on tumbling up until this competition, and I was doing so much bars, and we got to this comp, and I was like tossing between going through the double somersault on floor or leaving it out. But I was like, if I do the double somersault, I'm gonna have a higher difficulty score. If I don't do it, my floor is gonna be bad. And my coach was like, I don't know, it's up to you. And I'm like, go for it. And it was kind of sucked because I didn't get the right takeoff on this first tumble pass. I did the doubles. I'll have to show you the video. I did the double somersault. I landed short, literally put my hands down, and I had to get back up and do the whole routine.
Wow.
The music was playing. And I'm surprised I did the whole routine. In that moment, I didn't know that I had fully ruptured my ligament in my ankle.
Wow.
But I think it happened. But I think it happened the night after. I'll explain it later. But basically, I got straight up. This is what I mean about resolve. I literally just fell in my thing. I went straight up, and I was like, just continue. I was like a robot.
Wow.
I did 3 more tumble passes, like run, leaps, jumps, double twist, present, and then I had vault after that. So the 2 leg apparatuses. So then I had to like psych myself up to do this vault that I was like so terrified of landing on my head. And I'm running. I had to. It's like a round off, backflip onto the board, and then you do a back salt off the vault. Somehow I landed on my feet. And after that competition, later that night, I was in the spa for a bit with my friend, and we went home. In the middle of the night, like at night, my whole leg just blew up. My whole ankle became a balloon, and I was in agony, and I couldn't move.
Wow.
My whole like ankle went fat, and I was just like, Mum, I can't move. Like, I couldn't even stand up. It was just aching so bad. I was like, something's wrong with me. I don't know what's happening. And the next day, I didn't compete. I was in crutches. They're like, you have to go. I couldn't. I said bye to everyone. I was so devastated, and we had to drive home 10 hours and then get an MRI.
Wow.
So that competition, I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was.
The question was, so basically, you were telling why you left.
Yeah. So that competition was like real hit me because like I had a ruptured ligament. My body was obviously, and at that time, because I had been training so much bars, I had overworked my shoulders. So my shoulders were aching, and I'm like, after this competition, I really need to go see a physio for this because this is really painful. But I just had to do it. Like my whole career was just do it. Like no matter of the pain. I'm not saying that's good. I wouldn't recommend that now. But when I got home, we kind of all went into lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
So in lockdown, I was doing just heavy rehab. My whole life was like 2 hours of rehab. We were doing Zoom calls still. All the gymnasts were on Zoom calls every day in lockdown for 2 hours.
Wow.
During coronavirus, every day in lockdown, we were on Zoom calls. Wow. I was just doing my rehab for 2 hours. I was bored, so bored. But that was what I was doing because I had this, I had my shoulder pain. And I did a lot of reflecting in that time and I was really focused on myself. I don't know why. I was getting up at 6 a.m, doing my morning routine, eating oats. Like, I had this full, like, schedule. Mum's looking at me like, you're in lockdown. Like, you're not going to school. I was homeschooled too. Could get into that a bit more. And, yeah, I was just, like, so motivated to change my life. I don't know. I was listening to podcasts. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was just, like, in the zone, like, oh, what is this? Like, learning about myself. And something hit me spiritually where I was like, look, I think it's time to step away from the sport because my body is really telling me.
Right.
My body is tired, my body is sore, my body's hurt, and I don't think it's worth me like rehabbing to go back to the sport when I keep getting injured. Like a lot of my career, unfortunately, my body, I just kept getting injured. It was always my legs or and I think it's interesting because I feel like some gymnasts who are more slim, more like they are more prone to leg injuries, like ballerina type bodies, rather than a lot of the gymnasts that are like really muscly built. I was really good at like the artistic side of it, but my body was really in pain on the tumbling side of it. So I decided to leave the sport because of physical reasons, like painful reasons, and also mental because that was hurting me mentally. My body was always in pain.
Yeah.
And I had to do what was best for me, and I knew that hurting my body every day to get another medal or another status like wasn't worth it because at the end of the day, if you think about it, we're training our whole lives ideally to make it to the Olympics, but I just kind of thought like I've already achieved what I need to achieve out of the sport. Like I've found perseverance. I don't need a medal to feel like I've accomplished something. I don't need to keep damaging my body to keep like to think I'm gonna like achieve this medal or status or make it to the Olympics, which was kind of heartbreaking for me because the whole career you have the coaches saying you have so much potential, don't give up, like you're gonna make it to the Olympics, and to like not make it hit me hard and felt like I'd given up or I didn't achieve what I was set to achieve. But after reflecting for a few years, I realized that it's not all about the medals, it's about the person you become along the way, and some things aren't meant to be fully finished. Some things aren't meant to, you have to kind of know when to stop. You have to know when to change paths, I think. And if I could go back, I wish I knew that earlier. But end of the day, here we are. So yeah.
That's amazing. I literally was listening deeply to what you just said, and that's brilliant. I think to me that's the the juice of all the 11 years of doing gymnastics all the way
deep.
to the it was quite deep actually. Thanks for sharing that, Hayley.
No
it was
worries.
really nice. So let's steer away a little bit. So what does Hayley Prince do outside of gymnastics, and what are the other things that you're interested in?
So yeah, gymnastics, like the whole mindset definitely carried into my outside life. When I left the sport, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but the discipline carried on. Like I was, as I said, doing my morning routine in lockdown, reading books, listening to podcasts. I started learning about things like financial freedom, whatever, assets, and reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm just like, whoa. And I actually realized something in lockdown. I started meditating in lockdown for the first time. And that was like, what the heck is this? I feel so calm after. And living at home wasn't the best for me. It was kind of a bit chaotic. So I would always go into my room and just like shut away from the world, do my meditation or journal
It was a crazy time for everybody.
Talk to myself. Like I would literally write stories about my life on my laptop about what I'm going through. And it was kind of cool. It was like your higher self talking to you about what to do next. And yeah, like I learned that meditating is so powerful because I had this new like sense of peace that I was like, imagine if I had this in gymnastics. It's like that would be really cool if I had this skill in gymnastics where I could like manage my emotions and be calm. And I kind of took that into my next phase of my life, and you start piecing the puzzle together. I moved out at the age of 18, started living away from home to like discover myself more. And I worked in a healthcare company in vitamins just as a salesperson on the phone. Talking to people. And I just started like growing my confidence and everything. And it's not just like what I'm doing right now. It's like the person I've become, like where I can openly speak to people. Yeah. And share my stories and be inspiring or give advice or learn something. So, yeah, at the moment I'm working at a healthcare company and I train, I eat healthy. I'm working on my gut health diet at the moment because long story short as well, like gymnastics gave me some gut issues that I'm dealing with. I have a theory that it could have been Voltaren. Taking 2 times Voltaren every day, which kind of stripped my gut lining. And that was for pain. I had like really bad shin splints and knives felt like they were stabbing through my shins. So I had to take painkillers to get through my training sessions. And I've had a few people say it could be that's why you have gut issues and your digestion's bad. And so right now my focus is my health, my gut health. Seeing a proper physio again to sort out some lingering pain and issues that I still have in my body from the sport, and kind of seeing what like this new Hayley's all about as well, like growing my confidence, growing my skills.
Oh, that's amazing.
And being open to what's next.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And those are the things that will carry on, not only at this stage of your life, but probably throughout the whole of your life. Have you ever considered coaching as well?
Yeah, I have, but I don't know if it's for me. Like gymnastics coaching. I'm not saying could be life coaching. I don't know. Maybe in the future. Maybe, I don't know. But I just don't feel connected to that. Okay. I don't know why. I feel like if I'm a coach, I'm going to be a harsh coach. Like, I was an elite gymnast, listen to me, point your toes, like, because that's how I was coached, and I don't really see, like, the fun side of it. It's like it's like, for me, you're in the sport, and to be an elite gymnast, and not to fluff around. Right. That's pretty harsh, but, I mean, I could do, like, general coaching, but I don't think it's for me.
Okay. That's another venue, but I mean that's fine. I mean, I'm sure like the listeners of this podcast, they'll learn a one or two out of this conversation. I learn a lot. I really enjoy talking to you. And so you also mentioned about books. I'm very interested to see what is your top 3 books that kind of like inspire you along the way, or what would you suggest to our listeners?
Yeah, so the first book that opened my eyes to a new world or a new way of thinking, because I always thought, like, growing up, my parents kind of pushed me into this too, like, get good grades, go to university, like, all that blah, blah, blah.
What do you think now about that?
I was always kind of, like, against it. Actually, so from, like, year 7, 8, 9, I was like, yeah, top grades, straight A's, this, that. Like, I was like, I have to get the best grades to go to university. And then, like, I was homeschooled, actually, from year 8 to year 12. Okay. That was something I want to talk about. It's a big part of my life. My American coach, when I moved back to the Central Coast, was coaching me for a bit, and that's how they do it in the States. They're all homeschooled, the best gymnast. So he was like, yep, we're going to be training in the day, like 6 hours, so we need to do homeschooling. And that was hard for me, doing like 5 years of that, where you don't really have a teacher, you're just doing all the work on your own, and you have to get through it. And in my HSC, I had to do all this year 12 work at home. And that was tough.
Wow, it was definitely.
That's like discipline to another level. Like, you don't have the teacher pushing you. You don't have your friends to help with notes or anything. You have to figure this out. And I passed, thankfully. Wow. I went into the school. I went into the ATAR. I went to do the ATAR in the school in Terrigal High School. And yeah, I got a pretty good ATAR for what I'd been through. So I was pretty proud of that. But my mindset had completely changed at like year 10, because I was like, I don't want to go to university. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it made me realise, like, there's financial freedom. There's other ways. Like, assets, liabilities, businesses. And it made me realize that, like, yeah, it's not all about that. And something in me was like, it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that book. That changed my path and my mindset.
Yeah, definitely suggest everyone to have a copy
And made
of
me
that.
realize, like, I felt different. As soon as I read that book, I was like, this explains it. That's why I felt different. Like, I just felt like I wasn't meant for the school.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they talk about, like, A students and C students? And it's like, usually the C students are entrepreneurs and the A students are, like, all the academic people. Well, I felt like I was a creative C student all the time. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And I recommend that you read Power of Now.
Power of Now.
That was literally life-changing. I think I've read it a few times because the Power of Now, it's so the way he speaks is so complicated, but it's about discovering presence within yourself, and there is no such thing as time, psychological time that we make up in our mind. There's no thing as past and future. It's just what you have now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way you need to be, like, constant state of living of now. Like, yesterday's problems are not a thing. Like, 5 minutes ago problems are not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your life is literally now. There's no past or future. And it's more than just that. He really explains it in a way where throughout the book you have to pause and go, and you have epiphanies, like, throughout the whole book.
Wow.
So it's like a meditation. Definitely read it.
That's going to be in my list of reading. Okay.
Last one I would say is everyone's probably read it, Atomic Habits.
Oh, that's that's amazing.
I'm reading it again now because I feel like now is a good time for the end of the year to, like, really pick up on your discipline and your habits and remember the rules, like 2-minute rules.
One person's improvement.
Yeah, like 1%.
Tiny things,
the graph, 2-minute rule, like getting habit stacking, getting out of bad habits, like cues, cravings. I've, like, implemented those things without even realizing. Like, this is really, like, silly, but I'll give an example. At our office, we've always, as soon as I, like, started, they have, like, a biscuit stand, and it's, like, right near me and my friend's desk. And they always put, like, junk and food and always on there. Like, the owner will bring in, like, I love her, brings in cookies and stuff. But, like, for someone who's trying to be healthy and not put on weight or, like, fix their gut issues, that is not helping. So I was like to my friend, okay, we need to fix this. And without even realizing it, I was like, okay, we're going to move it into the kitchen, so it's not in our eyesight and we can smell it and see people grabbing it every 5 seconds. We moved it into the kitchen. We haven't touched it. Like, we haven't really touched it at all. So that is one example of environment and removing the cue, the trigger out of your environment. That's why I love Atomic Habits. It really breaks down things that you don't really realize until you do it.
Absolutely. I definitely suggest I think the Atomic Habits is one of the must reads for everybody. So speaking of the books as well, I also summarized the Atomic Habits book in my other podcast. So if you want to get a gist of it, if you haven't read it, I suggest to head to Atomic Reads. So whether you can go to the website, atomicreads.com, or you can search on Spotify or any podcast platform, Atomic Reads, and you can find that podcast, which is like the 10-minute shorts of Atomic Habits.
What was your summary of that book? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I love it. Like there's a few things just kind of stuck in my mind. That one person making 1% improvement on yourself, that really helps. I mean, you don't need to go to the full extent, right? I mean, the other day I was doing swimming, and I was telling to the other person, I aimed to do like the 50 laps of 50-meter swimming pool. And when I jumped into the water, I said, oh my God, 50 laps. It's too many. 2.5 kilometers. I'm tired already. But then my mindset kicked back, said, don't worry about it. Yeah, 50 is too big. You got to do 1 lap.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Do just only 1 lap. I did 1 lap, then the next one, the next one, the next one. An hour and a half later, I finished 49 and 50. That's something that I really took away out of the Atomic Habits. Or the other things I learned about it was, I think that example that there is, you're in a room and let's say there's a few ice cubes in the room as well. They raise the temperature 1 degree, nothing happened. Another degree, nothing happened. Another degree, nothing happened. But there would be a point in time that you'll see like the ice is melting. that one degree doesn't have any differences from the ones that you've done 5 times ago. It's the same, but the accumulation of the effort, and that makes the differences.
Eventually it'll explode.
Exactly.
I really want to like touch on what you were saying before, because a lot of the times we set like goals so high that it's unrealistic for ourselves. Like we look at someone who's running like 20-kilometer marathon, someone who's just started, and you think, oh, I can do that. But I think it's important to start with like mini steps, small steps every day, and like build up to that. Like if you compare your life to an elite gymnast and say, oh, I want to be an elite gymnast and train like them, and you go and try their full strength training, you're going to die. Like you really have to kind of be reasonable and start where you are and not compare yourself to others, because it's your journey at the end of the day, and just get 1% better every day. That could be 1 more page. That could be 1 more rep. Not thinking, oh, I'm going to start reading 10 pages a day when you don't ever read. Like just do 3 pages or 2. Like that's
absolutely
what it's all about. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Look, Haley, it was lovely to have a chat with you, learning about your journey. I really, truly enjoyed talking to you. And look, I could have gone to another couple of hours and talking to you and don't even noticing like how time flies. But thank you very much for accepting, and I'm sure like hopefully in future we'll have another session as well. We'll talk again. So if anyone wants to connect with you, right? You mentioned that you're not on the social media, but how people can get in touch with you if they want to, or if you want to share.
First of all, yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate
Pleasure.
it. It's been really great talking to you. I could talk for hours as well. Like there's so many things that just like go on my mind, and I can just rant about them all day. But yeah, I think I've learned a lot about it as well. If you do want to find me, I have started a TikTok page as well.
Wow.
Which is Healing with Hayley. I don't know, I just made that name up. But I'm getting really deep and personal on that as well. And I'm kind of trying to show myself more. So if you want to know about my gut health journey, I'm kind of like posting bits and pieces there. But yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. So I'll make sure just to drop that ID in the description of this podcast as well. Anyway, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Haley. And thank you very much for listening to our podcast. This was the first podcast, the first episode of this season, and I'm very happy that I started with Haley, because that was an amazing journey and amazing story. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, and be kind to one another. Do fitness, do exercise as much as you can.
Let us know what you learned, and I hope this inspired one person even.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye. Yes, we're gonna smash it. I like it one more time. No, go back.
Nah, can we do like?
No, that's too much. Like it's just.
Fine. What the? No, you went like off with the fairies. Like, do the handshake. Go.
Okay.
1, 2, boom.
Okay, goes up, down, and.
Oh, okay, old school. 1.
Okay, that was good. Okay.
Okay, that got the nerves. All right.
Hello, welcome to the Fitpath podcast. My name is Max. I'm the host of Fitpath.
Six packs? Host of Six Packs. This is the podcast about
Take
how
2.
to get abs, everybody.
Take 2.
About 18. Pretty much, covered a large chunk of who I am and my journey and where I am today. So
Okay, I'm gonna ask it again, but get a little bit close.
Okay.